Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. An interesting mix of matchups tonight in the CDL with Shotzzy emphatically extending his undefeated record in the CDL era against none other than Slasher of the Boston Breach. One of the most dominant individual series we have seen so far this season, especially one that went Game 5 Round 11. How did OpTic let it get to this point with Shotzzy playing this well? Much to discuss today. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, of course, we've got to note that OpTic Boston is quite a historic game actually, as Brian Stat says. OpTic and Boston have some Stage 2 history going into this game because, of course, last year in the Stage 2 qualifiers, OpTic played Boston when JurNii was on the team, let's not forget, and Scump kind of slammed at JurNii that series. It wasn't just Scump, to be fair, but OpTic, and Scump won that series. Scump then called it a day. He dropped a 1.22 KD, highest KD in a final series ever. He then retired very shortly afterwards. JurNii, of course, then announced his retirement at the Boston Major just a few weekends, of course, later. Today, however, this is how things looked, and as soon as I saw this map, I thought, okay, this is potentially going to be rather interesting here, because we know right now that OpTic's Search and Destroy map pool is highly questionable. They've not been great at Karachi either in matches, although they do say that in practice they're really good at Karachi, and we did see that translate today, that, of course, being the hard point. The Terminal Search and Destroy, though, has not been great for them. We know that Rio, they seem to like to play that map, and also Karachi, they've been pretty good at. They're not fantastic at Invasion, and they don't like high-rise, quite clearly. So the Search and Destroy map pool for OpTic is a vulnerability, and while they do get their Karachi in this series, that is a map where Boston have been good as well. Let's not forget, Boston slammed Minnesota Rocker on that map Game 5 just the other day. And Terminal, OpTic, I don't know what it is about this team, but maps like Terminal and High Rise just don't seem to suit this OpTic team, and they are just so lost. We'll discuss it in a second here. But as soon as I saw this map, I thought, okay, this potentially has a Neslo written all over it, potentially, depending on how, really Boston just needed to steal one map and try and win 2 Search and Destroys. And I feel like that was a valuable way to try and win the series. But it didn't start off in that way, because OpTic slammed them at Game 1 Karachi hardpoint. And this is why OpTic will have some interesting questions if they are actually asking themselves these questions, and I really think they should be, because they've just seen OpTic, what FaZe did to Thieves, and sure, OpTic also beat Thieves handily the start of when they made that Ross change as well, but what FaZe did to Thieves is what top teams really should be doing and laying the absolute hammer down on teams they should be beating. And OpTic didn't start this series slow, they started hot, they won Game 1 emphatically. They have to recognise why they lost the Game 2 Search and Destroy, where they might need to make improvements. But again, Shotzzy was absolutely doing it all. This guy has been unstoppable so far this stage. Of course, we know that X has talked about Shotzzy not being a superstar and all this type of stuff, but there's no denying that when Shotzzy's on form, his POV is the best, if not, absolutely one of the very best, if not the best, players in the entire world to watch. And there's no doubt why players have been so high on Shotzzy for years. Let's not forget that Formula's ended up saying that Shotzy's just way more talented than anybody has ever known, really, that's played professional esports, says that, he really should go down as the greatest, if not one of the greatest. That is the level of talent, that is the level of respect that Shotzzy gets. But we also know that Shotzzy can be prone to some mistakes, but I feel like over the last few days, we are seeing Dallas Empire Shotzzy back, but arguably on steroids, because this guy was doing it all. It's just incredible how much impact he can have when he plays well, and we saw that in spades Game 1. I mean, he ended up here on a 7 spree, on an 8 spree. I think, yeah, he gets this final kill as well to win this game on 27 in 7 on an 8 spree to close out the game. Doesn't even have a crazy reaction either. But of course, after that point, you're thinking, all right, Shotzzy has just taken over the Game 1. He also was by far OpTic's best player in the Search and Destroy maps today as well. He was literally doing everything. I don't know if you guys remember that graphic that was going around when, I think earlier in the season, they won a series, Shotzzy didn't do much, and he said, yeah, I didn't do anything today. Today, Shotzzy did absolutely everything, but it still almost wasn't enough. And it's moments like this that I'm like, okay, what are OpTic doing here? Because they're down 2-0, they've run into the plane here on Terminal. Terminal is not a good Search and Destroy map. I don't think anybody really thinks that it is. The defense should be closing out their rounds, and that's what Boston do on this particular occasion. But the OpTic guys, their breaks into the plane aren't exactly great. They don't seem to have too many other options they go for. In clutch situations, OpTic are pretty suspect, and yes, they did win the series, but I think there's more to it than that if you're from the OpTic perspective. Now, Boston, they're a bit hit and miss, aren't they? Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. I still don't think they're especially good. They also lacked ice today, big time. This is a funny moment as well. OpTic now 3-0 here, and Pred is just shooting at Shotzzy through the wall. He only does it once, but like just the lack of awareness was somewhat strange. Pred looks like really lost in the search and destroys at times. So does Kenny, actually. I know that Kenny's been talking about this for some time, but Kenny and Pred, I think, and maybe Dashy as well, really have to get their search and destroy in gear very shortly, because against the top teams, this is a weakness that will expose them massively. And the map pool is bad enough already, but even not to be that competitive on those search and destroy maps they're not very good at, that is a bit of a concern, probably more than a bit of a concern for these guys as it stands. Now, whether they will think, well, we won Game 5, Round 11, it's all sunshine and rainbows, I don't think they will, because I think they'll have seen what FaZe did shortly afterwards and really put a hammer down in terms of what it looks like given the skill gap that is clearly inherited in this game if you have great teamwork, and we saw that in the search and destroy in the FaZe series, we shall get into here in a second. But Kenny has never been a great search and destroy player, especially not online, and I do think that on LAN it is a bit of a different story, but we can only really go on what we see online, and the best teams online tend to be the best teams on LAN. They were quite quickly down 5-1 in this one. OpTic, Pred was on a donut here, he was 0-6, he very nearly went 0-7 here actually, but he did get a kill in this round. OpTic do eventually bring this one back to 5-3, but it doesn't matter in the end because they lose and they close out this one. This is a funny final round as well when Shotzzy goes for the dolphin dive across the room, and in the fuselage here at the plane, Kenny shoots him in the back. Snoopy's still in his favourite spot getting kills, and it was a bit of a nightmare. The control, however, was basically unforgivable for OpTic to lose this map. Sometimes invasion control goes like this when the defensive teams just have it on lock and there's not much you can do. This was a strange one though, because OpTic had captured A, and they're really good at offense on this map, typically OpTic. Kenny had a bit of a shock in first round here as well at 2-9, and OpTic just could not break the trap at all. They couldn't even get B. Sometimes this happens, but it's pretty rare. Like if you cap A, usually you're going to get B. Boston hold down a nice defense though, but OpTic just dominated both of their defenses, like so bad. Boston got nowhere near the point at all, and it was a guaranteed defense for OpTic round 5 as a result. But come the round 5, this happens, and I don't know what it is about these round 5s, but for just some reason, the round 5 is different. I don't know if OpTic just kind of felt like, and yes, there were some dodgy spawns involved here for sure, but it felt to me that OpTic thought, oh, we've just slammed them 2 defenses in a row. There's no way they're going to win this one, but turns out there was. Boston stacked B early on. They got a couple of ticks on that. Then they made the nice transition over to A. OpTic seemed a bit confused as to what to do, and after slamming them 2 defenses in a row, they then go on to lose the map in the round 5, losing the offense, and it's Boston that go up 2-1 in the series. So this is when, again, OpTic's back's firmly against the wall. We've seen this plenty of times lately against teams that they should be heavily favoured in, and they go from crushing the game 1 in dominant fashion to all of a sudden being down 2-1. Obviously, we know Minnesota Rocket really should have beaten them in that ridiculous series the other week, but I think OpTic have lots of things to think about the way this series played out. However, you can rely on this man right now, and have a look at this, let's be honest. Shotzzy just comes in, gets 1, gets 2, just doing it all on the map all of the time. Look at the movement on this guy, throw it around, chucking the nades, getting more kills, getting the time, just doing everything. At this point, he's already 10-3. He did slow down a bit. I think he was then 10-7 shortly after that, while Kenny won on a bit of a streak of his own. Boston brought this one back, though. But this is a Rio hard point that I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it until I really see like Ultra and FaZe and OpTic really match up together on this map. But Pred and Shotzzy on paper should be like the best SMG duo on this map in my opinion. I guess you can look at Simp and aBeZy, you can always look at them, you can look at CleanX and Envoy as well, and obviously HyDra aren't too bad either, right? There's also good SMG duos in those top teams, but man, Shotzzy and Pred should be unbelievable in this map. Like this reminds me a bit of Picard, where Pred was unbelievable, and of course Shotzzy was playing stellar COD this series, and he just simply could not be stopped. Like, Shotzzy went on an 8 spree to close out this game. There was even a time where they were breaking over towards the P2. Shotzzy's entire team was dead, and he popped a 3-piece with the rival out of nowhere and just stopped Boston getting any time. Just ridiculous individual performance here, and pretty much single-handedly takes OpTic here to the Game 5 in the series. And come the Game 5, whenever they needed a man to make the play, it was always Shotzzy ended up making the play, right? Like, the amount of times that he came up with a clutch 2-piece on the defensive round over by the A point was unfathomable, frankly. And again, OpTic was still thrown to weird rounds. Like, this was an ace for Asim, a 1 versus 2 he clutched in, not one that really they could have lost, and Asim's in the position to get the final kill on Dashy. Frustrating one to lose, and look, OpTic can say, well, we had the ice and all this, but, you know, they did lose some winnable rounds here. They went down 4-2, and I really feel like if it wasn't for Boston having a quite severe lack of ice right now, and OpTic did clutch up, to be fair, but I just don't think OpTic should be in these type of positions against a suspect team in Boston. And, you know, it's not like Boston had a man going insane. Like, OpTic had Shotzzy having like a generational series, and Boston didn't really. I mean, okay, all of them had their moments. Asim played pretty well, but there wasn't exactly any big moments, really. There was, again, this round from Shotzzy, right? I mean, Slash is here on the car. Shotzzy comes off the top, gets 1, gets 2, flies out, and just guns Slash off the head glitch so hard. Like, what can you do against this guy right now? It's ridiculous. And that's when they're down 4-2, trying to bring it back in the game, and Shotzzy pulls that out to get it to 4-3. Like, I mean, honestly, OpTic stated after the series how important Shotzzy was to their victory, but I feel like they're understating it. Like, he was literally doing it all. It was absurd. And even OpTic on this round, they had a massive misread in terms of what Boston were trying to do. They didn't know the bomb was down on A. They all rotate to B. Then they're all super split up here, but they do create actually a pretty good retake here, OpTic. Take it to the round 11 and eventually win the round 11. Feel bad for Slasher, right? Because he has never beaten Shotzzy, which is a pretty funny stat. But the one time that he gets a pretty good chance to do so, Shotzzy just goes absolutely nuclear to win them the series, right? So just unbelievable scenes as Fred's a good clutch out of the boys. And I really want to know what OpTic take away from this, right? Because while it was a good clutch, down 4-2, they went big. Shotzzy did it all. I think really you've got to look at it from a deeper perspective if you're OpTic, right? You've got to say, right, how are we finding ourselves in these positions? What things do we have to improve on? Because, as I say, they went on very shortly afterwards and they saw what FaZe just did to the Los Angeles Thieves. You know, Shotzzy is him today, no doubt. And look at these numbers, right? Priestahh even, Slasher in the slight negative, Snoopy had a 0.8, he had a pretty rough conclusion to the series. Asim was there with a 0.9, but some decent impact. And the numbers don't look too bad on the other side, but Shotzzy, 103 kills. That's almost the season record. I think the record is 104 from MettalZ, maybe. 103 for Shotzzy, 1.72, 15,000 damage. To be fair, right, Kenny had the most damage in the lobby, Shotzzy had the most kills. So Kenny was getting lots of people one-shots, and then Shotzzy was cleaning them up, but still, the amount of impact here cannot be understated at all. And yeah, afterwards, I don't know what exactly the boys were looking at, but a pretty funny picture of the boys behind the scenes there after winning a ridiculous series. But they will need to play better against Toronto on Sunday if they want to win that one, and especially when they play FaZe the next time, because FaZe are turning up at the moment. This FaZe team genuinely right now reminds me of Cold War FaZe, and it's got to be said, they have started the season in, apart from losing to Toronto in the finals of Major 1, absolute dominant fashion, and this Thieves series was reminiscent in many ways of the absolutely embarrassing FaZe Thieves series from Cold War. If you guys don't remember, when Venom got assassinated in that checkmate control, and FaZe were basically just taking the piss. Now, it wasn't quite that bad this series, and game 1 was kind of competitive for the first few minutes, but then FaZe just ran away with it, as the best teams tend to do. Simp as well said that he turned off, like he didn't have overclocked on his controller, or he didn't overclock his controller. He then put overclocking back on his controller, and bang, he was frying again. And the search and destroy, FaZe just 6-0'd them. A few rounds that FaZe had to clutch up here, but the teamwork was impeccable. And I think that FaZe, after losing to Toronto, they're like, okay, we need to take a step forward in our teamwork and other aspects. And while Toronto may have regressed a little bit, FaZe have taken a big step forward here, right? Simp and Cellium dominated the search and destroy, and then they dominated the control as well. Okay, fair enough, they lost the first round, but after that, they just slammed them. Cellium was shooting all sorts of bodies here, right? Here he is, putting some extra lead into Kremp's body. Did the same thing to Afro a few seconds later as well, at a tough time, and, you know, gets the kill. Couple of extra body shots in, and FaZe very swiftly close out this series, right? So that, I think, is how it's meant to be done. Thieves, I think this was a real hurdle for them. I don't think they really expected to beat FaZe, but the manner in which they got absolutely trounced here was Cold War-esque from FaZe, and also just those that Thieves, in terms of being a dark horse or trying to get to the top 4, have a long way to go, despite the 2 reasonably impressive 3-2 victories victories they've had over the last couple of weeks. FaZe, by the way, that's their 8th 3-0 sweep of the year. The only team not to have been swept, of course, by any team this year. And the numbers just got worse and worse. I mean, Simp has a 1.23, Drazah has a 1.3, Cell has a 1.7, aBeZy has a 1.16. Of course, I'm going to give Shotzzy like day MVP because of his performance up against the Boston Breach. Of course, that series went to 5, so more impressive to maintain those numbers that deep in the series. But yeah, an absolute red carpet here with the Los Angeles Thieves. And they have lots to think about going forward indeed. So very much interested your thoughts on today's series. And just to mention here from Brian's stats again, FaZe started Cold War 14-3. They've started Modern Warfare 2 14-3. And I just feel like watching their gameplay lately, I think they're going to be the favourites going into the major. With what they did against Toronto, it just feels to me that however the season started, FaZe right now seem to be the team to beat. And I'm sure that we're going to get more classic battles come the major. But, you know, OpTic must have watched this and thought, okay, we have some work to do. So we'll discuss the Ravens versus Gorilla series tomorrow. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.